So you have Cracker Barrel and you have the WNBA. One of these companies desperately needed a brand overhaul. One of them desperately needs a brand overhaul. One of them desperately needs to completely have the way they're looked at, the way they're presented, the way everything that we know about them needs to be changed. Then you got another one that is has one of the strongest brands out there, one of the strongest, you know, connection to a brand out there. By that I mean, one of the strongest situations where when somebody hears that name and thinks about that brand, they immediately think of something unique, and a lot of people have a very positive feeling towards that. So guess which one has rebranded and changed their logo and is planning on, changing their overall presentation quite a bit, and which one is stubbornly sticking to their guns? Yeah, you guessed it. Cracker Barrel, as you may or may not have heard, over the last few weeks has changed their logo and is going to be doing some pretty significant overhauling of the way the restaurants are. They say they're going to keep the pegboards and the fireplaces and all that, but they're going for a more modern feel, which is exactly what people who go to Cracker Barrel are not looking for. Um, I know a lot of people made videos about that. I mean, you can watch them. I don't know why they did that, and if anybody here has any idea why they are doing that and why the WNBA is not doing that, I would love to hear your thoughts. My thoughts are it comes down again to the fact that the WNBA has never had to make money. The NBA has always been there to bail them out, to give them the money that they lose because their brand is absolutely toxic. Their brand just has a stench to it. You think of the WNBA, you think of a bad product, you think of bad basketball, you think of unlikable players. There's just a number of things that you think about that are not positive. It's had a major influx of popularity over the last 2 years since Caitlin Clark joined. Massive spikes and unprecedented spikes in TV ratings and attendance. But the people that's an Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark thing. Nobody's saying, I'm going to watch a WNBA game today. They're either saying I'm going to watch Caitlin Clark or I'm going to watch the Indiana Fever who happen to have Caitlin Clark, as well as some of her teammates that a lot of us have grown attached to over the past couple years, and those of us are still paying attention because I mean they botched her situation so badly. I myself didn't even watch the last game when they played against Minnesota because I just didn't feel like watching it. I'm like, okay, I think I've seen enough garbage to know that to know that until Caitlin Clark comes back, nothing's gonna change. And that's the thing, there's just that sense of dread that they're just stubbornly fighting it, and nobody's being the adult in the room saying, no, we're going to change this brand. We're going to change the way we're presented. We're going to make some significant changes to our rules. And you guys are going to undergo some media training so you can understand how to market yourselves and the league in a much better light. And if you don't, you're going to be punished for it. They won't do that. They're going to let these ladies keep doing exactly what they want to do. The by and large unlikable ladies, actively trying to push fans away because they know they're going to get paid no matter what. So they don't want the eyeballs on them. They don't want people scrutinizing them and demanding accountability and just pointing out all their major flaws. They want to be able to do things with no explanation. They want to be able to say, yeah, I'm out. My team's struggling like heck, and I have a back injury. My back's hurting. I can't play. And oh, I just released my new sneaker line that's supposed to be the next Air Jordans. I need to get out there and be more visible. My back suddenly stopped hurting. What do you know? What a miracle. They want to be able to just do that and have no repercussions and continue to stay insulated in their little bubble. And they are in desperate need of an overhaul, but the company doing the overhauling is Cracker Barrel. And I know there's been a lot of talk about that. I don't really have anything to add to that, but I don't understand why they're doing what the WNBA needs to do when they have a very distinct brand that has a mostly positive tie to it. I know their food slipped over the last 5 years, and I don't know what the deal there is. I wish they would spend that money getting that fixed, but it is what it is. Um, and I just want to know why they felt the need to and the WNBA doesn't. Like I said, I know a lot of it comes down to the fact that the WNBA is going to make money no matter what. If they were ever told, all right, you got to make money, you're going to stop existing, well, I don't know if they could do it at this point. I really don't think they just know how, because they've never had to for 30 years almost, coming up on 30 years. And why Cracker Barrel? I mean, you hear the name Cracker Barrel, you automatically know what you're thinking of. An old timey looking store, a lot of relics from the past, knickknacks hanging on the wall you know, that were around a while back. Advertising. Some of the old advertising from back a while. Actually, one of the things I like doing there is going there with my parents and pointing something out, saying, "What the heck is that?" It's something I've never seen before, and they'll tell me what it is, what it was used for, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we had one of those when I was a kid." And I'm like, "Wow, that's pretty cool," Or I'll point to a poster. I'm like, "What brand is that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that was an oil additive back in the day. We used to put in our cars." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's just kind of interesting, hearing them talk about their childhoods. Even though it was a while back, even though my own childhood was a while back, sometimes it's interesting to kind of hear my parents talk about the things they went through as children, or the things that they used, and you just kind of get an idea how things looked when they were growing up, and how that molded them to who they are and molded them into how they raised me. I feel like it gives me a kind of a better insight into who I am and the person that they molded me into. And like I said, it had something that no other restaurant could really offer, and that was an advantage. You got to have that advantage, but obviously it wasn't everybody's cup of tea. But in trying to make it everybody's cup of tea, they're going to make it nobody's cup of tea. But then you got the WNBA that is nobody's cup of tea. Like I said, the people that are tuning in and paying attention, by and large now, are people like me that really do not like the WNBA itself. We just like watching Caitlin Clark and her team, which happens to be the Indiana Fever, which happens to be a WNBA team. If all of them left and decided to go play in a EuroLeague team, we're going to abandon the WNBA in a heartbeat. This is their chance. They had a lot of eyeballs on the WNBA. This is their chance to say, hey, that's cool. Come in. Watch Caitlin Clark. Watch the Fever. And watch some of us too. We're going to be, we want you here, and we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to put on a good product for you. You're going to see that we're people that you can pay attention to and like, and they just won't do it. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why they just are that stubborn about it. Again, is there no pride? Do they not want to make their own money? Do they not want to not have to live off men's money? The men in the NBA, and the money they make are having to be funneled into them just to keep them afloat. Is there not any part of them that wants to stand on their own 2 feet and have more of a, which would give them more of a voice of their own when it comes to the WNBA with these CBA negotiations, which looks like they're going to reject and stubbornly either strike or get themselves locked out, and which is going to kill the league. The league might fold under that, to be honest with you. And they don't understand that. They don't know any better because they've not had to actually exist under capitalism and supply and demand, because the demand is just not there at all for the product itself. Their core audience of about 300,000 or 400,000 people is not enough to sustain a professional sports league, even one like the WNBA with just 12, now 13 teams. And you're never going to make that money if the NBA decided either we don't want to fund you guys anymore, or we got our own issues we need to worry about. The WNBA's done, and that day might be coming sooner than they realize, because like I said, the NBA is having some issues of their own. So why they won't rebrand? It's like something got lost in the time-space continuum. They said, all right, you need to rebrand, talking to the WNBA, and Cracker Barrel heard it and said, yes, I hear you, I will rebrand. And they're like, no, wait, I was talking about crap. But so I don't get it. I don't understand why the WNBA is so stubborn. I mean, I guess I kind of understand, but at the same time, you got to have some pride there and say, I want this to be a respected league. I want people to tune in and say, yeah. And instead, they want to try to change the way we think. Instead of doing better themselves, they want to change us and cause us to lower our standards to like them. And I don't get that. I don't, you that doesn't make any sense to me. And again, why Cracker Barrel will do that to such a recognizable, unique brand that has actually, caused a legitimate, tie to people who like that brand, they're going to do away with it. So I understand. I understand business. Obviously, they're taking business courses, but I do understand those very basics. That what Cracker Barrel's doing is, brand suicide, and what the WNBA is doing by not doing that is just we're never going to make money. We're always going to have to rely on the men in the NBA. So tell me what you guys think. Any reason why you can think of? Does this kind of puzzle you the way it puzzles me? Be interested to hear. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you later.